Welcome to Masterclass, our opportunity to hear Coach Sean Brosnan of Newbury Park and Coach Doug Souls of Great Oak in a highly detailed discussion of the meets where their boys teams went head-to-head during their epic 2019 cross-country season. We start with the 39th annual Woodbridge Invitational, held September 21st at Silver Lake Sports Complex in Norco, California. The Doug Speck Boys Sweepstakes race goes off at about 10 p.m. under the lights, concluding two fantastic days of racing by thousands of athletes. The 3-mile course is flat and fast, traversing soccer fields, and is where many athletes earn their seasonal PRs. The Great Oak Boys program has won the 2017 and 2018 Sweepstakes races by huge margins, but Newbury Park, with 2018 individual champion Nico Young, has big plans this year. First off, the first big meet, the Woodbridge Invitational. It's a national caliber meet, super fast, flat course, mostly California teams, some occasional out-of-state talent, especially individually. Coming in, Doug, you weren't even there. You had a personal commitment. You had to attend a function in Oregon, correct?
Yeah, I was getting inducted into my high school Hall of Fame and had committed to it and couldn't get out of it. So it was kind of one of those things I had to be gone.
So since you weren't going to be there, and this was a meet you guys have owned over the years, what was your last message to the team before the race? And also, what was your last message to Coach Noble, your associate head coach?
Honestly, I pretty much let him do it. I left, I want to say Wednesday evening or whatever, and just kind of told him, look, you guys just go out and do what you normally do and compete. You know, I think on social media, I put out a couple things to build him up, but you know, more than anything, I implicitly trust Coach Noble. I had no worries that he could do the job. He's done it many times when I've been gone. So, you know, I knew that we had the pieces in place to do what we needed to do. I think one of the things, I'm rarely gone. So when I'm gone, I think, you know, for some kids, I think some of that security blanket was gone. And they weren't quite as comfortable going in as, you know, when I'm there, I can make some adjustments or just pump them up or just, you know, calm the nerves. And I don't know that was done perfectly for every single one of those kids. Some of them were a little bit more nervous on the boys' side than they probably should have been. And I think that showed, you know, these guys came in guns blazing and our guys were a little bit tentative, and some of our key guys just did not have a great race that day. And I think it was nerves more than anything.
So Doug was coming into that race with a very talented team and a very experienced team. Your kids have already shared that in addition to trying to win NXN, their other big goal was to also run the table, be unbeaten. So I would sense that's a bit of pressure on your squad, on yourself, because if this doesn't happen early, that's one of the first two big goals out the window. What was the discussion like heading into that first showdown race, knowing unbeaten was part of the math?
Yeah, I mean, obviously our goal was, you know, the guys set out some pretty detailed goals, and one of them was to break the course record there and obviously go undefeated all year. So going into it, you know, the one thing we just wanted to, we wanted to go into that thing and we wanted to make a statement. You know, we didn't want anyone to, not that it was what other people thought, but we wanted to just show everyone this is what we are, this is who we are. Like, we're going to come into this thing. We want the target on us. We want the #1 ranking. That's what we went in. We wanted to show everyone what we were that day, and that was the guys. That's how the guys went into it for sure.
So going into a race like this, I mean, it's a pretty large field. I forget, I should know this, but I believe it's 30 teams on the line in the sweepstakes race, I believe it is. At night, lighting is not ideal. Are you guys looking for uniforms, or is it running your own race? How do you approach it from a positioning standpoint, if you do at all at Woodbridge?
I mean, for us, we're usually going to have 5 to 7 guys in the top 20 and then just trying to push towards the front. So, you know, I don't think we were as much looking for them as just they were going to be 1 and 2. So we knew that they were going to be up in the front and they were going to be dictating the race pace anyway. So, you know, knowing that Nico's going to be up there, we assumed Jace would take second, and he did. So, you know, just kind of feeling that okay, they're going to dictate the pace. What I told my kids was you got to make sure when they go at a mile, they're going to take off at a mile, you got to go with them. And I think that kind of happened, but my guys didn't respond at all. So that was the thing. I'm like, well, when I give you an instruction and you don't do it, then you're probably going to end up with the results that you got. So when we looked at that, I knew later in the season I had to make sure that they were ready to do what we were asking them to do when we got to Clovis.
Okay, so as far as the race goes itself, knowing that the pressure is a bit more on you guys, is there a case where you're also focusing on them? Because it seems like a lot of times your kids are instructed to focus on your own, not on somebody else.
We don't really focus on a team uniform or anything like that. I mean, sometimes they have different color uniforms, these guys. I think they go from gray to red or something. So we don't really focus on that. All my kids knew where they needed to be from Nico. They keyed off of Nico. They knew how far back they needed to be, and that's what our focus was. And then Jace accordingly. I mean, my 5 guy knew from workout. We knew where they could be.
Big level race. Stakes are pretty high, even though it's in the big picture meaningless. It's early season. Mateo Joseph goes down. Maybe even another kid goes down early at the start. You had mentioned that visualization prepares you for something just like this. How did you think? And no, he's not in the frame here. How did you think he responded from just aftermath, and also from both of you? When you have a kid go down or something go wrong early in a race, what do you teach your kids as to how to rebound from that during the actual race? How do you actually recover without making matters worse?
It was tough for me because I didn't know he went down. So seeing him that far back, I was like, okay, what's going on here? Why did he struggle so much? But once I was able to find out that he fell, and there's nothing you can do, just got tangled up. I think my kids tripped him. So when your teammates knock you down, there's not much you can do in that situation. So sometimes kids go down, and the ultimate goal is to get up and slowly work your way back through the field. And I think Mateo did a good job of that. In that race, it wouldn't have mattered. They blitzed us from the front from the beginning, and it was we had to respond big time at a mile mark, and we just didn't respond at all, and they did. So part of that is we made some changes in our training in the early season where we do a lot more soft sand work focusing on NXN, and so I think it puts us a little bit more vulnerable at Woodbridge because we're not doing any real fast stuff. A lot of our speed stuff is in the sand. It's a lot slower. So I think it pays off for us at NXN, but I think it hurts us a little bit at Woodbridge compared to years past.
Sean, if you have something that goes wrong for one of your kids early in the race, what have you tried to teach them as to how to cover that?
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of keep grinding. They know that. I mean, Lex, my freshman, ran like 14:36. He lost his shoe at 200 meters. He ran the whole thing with one shoe. I remember he actually took it off and threw it to the side. I saw him at a mile. I was like, he's got one shoe on. But this is probably the perfect course to do that on. Otherwise, I would have pulled him. I said, get off. If he was at Woodward or something, I mean, get off the course. It's not that. He ended up being my 6th man that day, I think. But no, I mean, they know. I mean, anything can go wrong. I talk about that all the time. There's spills all the time in the beginning. I mean, I make them tie their shoes like 20 times. I mean, there's no room because I get so scared of people losing shoes or shoe coming untied. I will lose it if someone's shoe comes untied. That just can't happen. But otherwise, yeah, they keep the grind. They know.
I think oftentimes the lesser experienced runners, when something goes wrong, they panic and try and really get to the front again really fast. What comes to mind is that great race with Galen Rupp on the track. I want to say it may have been U.S. Championships on the track, and his shoe came off, and he showed great poise in gradually coming back up as opposed to wham all at once. And that's something that kids can benefit from at the high school level. This race right here coming through, we see him right here. We're kind of midway through, probably about a kilometer in, a little bit beyond that. Yeah. And it's still a pretty dense field. This course, there's no real spot that can break it up. There's no hills to break up people. So you have kids, like Sean mentioned, that run PRs. Even the kids in the middle and back of the pack will run a PR that they'll never see again the rest of until next year's Woodbridge. But this is harder to make a mistake on in a sense because everyone's going to keep going fast. There's no points to slow people down. How do you guys approach that in terms of that whole challenge of such an easy course?
I mean, we run some pretty fast workouts. I think it caters to us pretty good at Newbury Park, and some of the stuff we like part of our program. I mean, we do a lot of other stuff too, but I think these guys, I don't know, they run this thing like track. You just go after it. But we train to go out hard, so I don't think this affects us too much. Like this, I told Nico to go in just at 4:30, and I think he was right around there. I mean, I think he just went through 429 or 430 or something like that. So,
And we see right here the raw score. So this does not use displacement. This does not also pull out individuals. This is just the actual raw order here. And we see we've got right here 4 of the top 11. I'm sorry, 4 of the top 11 for Newbury Park early on. And 41st, it might look like, whoa, he's pretty far back. No, it's a massive humanity. It's pretty close together. Doug, and you're looking right here. You see a lot of your kids in their uniforms in the red with the GO on the chest. Do you instruct them to stay together like we see there? Or is it a case of they're about the same fitness and they just happen to be nearby? Because it looks like there's a little bit of space where they're not really together. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we just had a kind of a weird year where they were all about the same level. So, we're never going to tell kids where they need to be. We just try to make sure that they understand, give or take, what their positioning needs to be in the first mile and then when to respond to the moves that are going to be made. We knew it was going to be hard because we figured somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600 Nico was going to hammer. Obviously, Jace was feeling good there. So we felt like they were ready to rock and roll. And so our guys were instructed to make sure that we put a big gap in between their 3, 4, and 5. And so that was the goal. But then, when you guys took off, our guys, if you watch through the video, our guys just did not respond to it in this race. And some of it I think is just the way we've trained we've changed our training to focus on Mount Sac and NXN, like that segment of racing. And so it's a little bit more mountain based. It's a little bit more mud based than this. In the prior years, we did a lot more stuff focusing on being ready for the speed based stuff, but we don't do it as much anymore. So I don't know how good we're going to be at Woodbridge compared to years past, just because of that shift in training philosophy.
And we see there's Nico in front, just rolling as usual. Jay's currently now in second. You see his reaction. I know afterward, Dan Noble, your associate head coach, your right-hand man, he wasn't too thrilled with that. He thought it was almost a sense of showing it up. And in announcing that race, I kind of almost had the same reaction, like, wow, that's unlike Jay's. He explained what it was is one of their rivals, Thousand Oaks, their head coach was on the side cheering him and Newbury Park on. And once he saw that, it got him jazzed up, like, geez, they're cheering for us. And he was that just sent him through the roof right there. And so he just had that moment of adrenaline and emotion and reaction right there. You see Colin Solomon right there. Then you see the big pack for Great Oak right behind Colin for Newbury Park. So we can already see it on this course. Things are really, like you mentioned, the 2 way out front, and then you've got the pack right here. When you've got this is probably the one race of the year, even though the difficulty of the course is very different. This is probably the one race that somewhat resembles NXN in terms of the masses around you, where it's almost hard to tell what's really going on, almost. Why do you guys like Woodbridge so much? What appeals to you the most about it? Great meet.
I just think Woodbridge, the environment, it's cooler at night. Obviously, running the day would be a lot different than running at night. I wouldn't want to do that with the top guys or girls, but the environment's fun. It's kind of like an electric environment. It's one of our favorite races, and I don't know, people from outer state just don't like to call it a cross-country course, but it's a flat course. It's fun. I don't know. I think it's all of the environment. That's what we do it for. It's great.
See Nick Goldstein, I said Colin Solomon, I think he got 4 in the top 8 right here, and then right behind 11, 15, 16, 18, 21. So again, that pack has now passed the number 5 and is closing in on number 4 scorer. So it's looking pretty exciting here. In terms of this race right here, you may have noticed at one point in time, Daniel Rodriguez from Highland was near the front. I believe currently he is in 4th right here, could be in 5th. He's the kind of kid that loves to go out really hard, this whole Steve Prefontaine mentality. In fact, at the Clovis Invitational, we actually saw him pass Nico at the mile mark, and Nico kind of like, who is this kid? I mean, I'm sure he knew, but he's not used to having someone to pass him. A lot of kids like using that, go out hard, Prefontaine, see who's tougher. When is that a bad idea, in your opinion? How often do you have to corral kids in saying, that's not the smart way to go? Or how often do you like that because they want to compete up front?
Well, I mean, if they have that ability, then, I always tell our kids, you never want to be in the lead unless from that point on you're going to win, right? So if you're someone like Nico, you can go to the front immediately because you're the best kid in the field by a lot. But for the rest of my kids, you'll notice that they tend to not take the lead unless they know from that point on they're gonna try to do it. So you won't usually see a lot of Great Oak people out front early on, except for Destiny Collins. She was the only one we had that was just by nature a front runner. She would go to the front, but the rest of them didn't. So, at the end of the day, you're looking at for us, we're just trying to kind of figure out where our positioning is and then move. And that was the big problem that we had in this race, is that we've got position and then didn't move.
I like my guys to go out hard, but not over the, you don't want them to do too much. Like I wouldn't want Nico to go out in 4:15. He can go out in 4:27. That's what he's capable of. Jace in the high 4:30s or whatever it is. Everyone has to know their limits. I like them to go out on the faster side. That's how we train, but on the faster side for them. Like I wouldn't want my 7 guy, Tommy, going out with Jace. That would just destroy him. So they kind of have to know where they're at. But it's definitely nice when you can go out in 4:29 and handle it. And you can.
I think sometimes it's critical too to allow them to make that mistake so that they can kind of figure out where they're at. We did that with Isaac Cortez, I want to say back in 2014 at the Clovis Invitational. He said, "Coach, I want to run to win this. I want to run from the front. I want to take on," I think it was Elijah Armstrong or somebody like that from Idaho came down. "I just want to sit with him and see how long I can go." And, he paid the price for it. He faded back to, 16 or 20 or something like that. But he started figuring out his limits. And I think sometimes when you allow your athletes that leeway, it might hurt in that race. But when they get to the championships, they're a little bit more honed in and ready to figure out exactly where they should be.
In those instances, like when you have an Isaac Cortez, in this case this year, you had Nico and Jace up front, as far as their front running mentality, is that something that is based entirely on personnel? And if they're that good, how do you try and get them, like say Colin, for instance. Colin isn't at the level of a Nico, for instance, but he's a young, talented, aggressive, high goal achieving kid. How do you try to help nurture and foster that front running mindset where it's not discouraging to say, no, you're not quite there? How do you?
I think they know their time. I think Colin knows his time's going to come. I think next year is going to be a little different for him. He's going to be on another level. Running like I said, a 15:09 at Woodward Park for a sophomore is pretty good. And I think, I don't know what he ran here, 14:20 something, I think is what he ran. But he's going to be, he's going to be low 14s next year. We hopefully can get under, but that's, you got to put it out there. It's early too. I think it's okay to go out a little hard in this thing. This is Woodbridge, and you're not going to pay the price you would. I think at Mount Sac you might pay the price worse if you went out too hard. I don't know, but they know where they're at. But I think at this point when I saw this, I was like, I saw them at, I don't know where it is in the course. I think right before a 2 mile. I was pretty confident we were going to win by this. I saw the looks on everyone's face, and I was like, okay, they're fine. And then when I was in we had 400 to go, I could see the results were pretty good for us. But
and then you see right here, coming up toward the finish, now your lower right, there is Nico Young. Again, a preview of what was up to come, which eventually would culminate in a national individual championship. And Woodbridge, like any other high school meet, high school bands, people all over the place at night, just like any other high school meet in the country. Yeah, right. It's definitely a different situation here. As a kid, how easy is it to sell your first year runners or your freshmen on the sport when you bring them to something like this?
Makes it really easy for me. That's why Woodbridge has always been one of my favorite meets, because for me, it's not about the sweepstakes races. It's about the freshman races and figuring out what we've got. And do we have kids that can go out there and run fast? And, the first time I realized Destiny Collins was going to be special was in the rated race at Woodbridge. So.
And here was finishing up, I believe it was right around 13:39, 13:40. And this course has very much shown to be, for most of the better kids, about a minute difference from Woodward Park. For the really, really good kids, it's a little bit less because of the difference, Woodward Park being a bit challenging. And we kind of saw that play out here with a lot of the top kids. Jace, I know he was pretty pumped up. Obviously his breakthrough race in his mind when he arrived was when he saw his time at state, but right here, obviously, too, national caliber race going 1-2. There's Vandegrift from Texas coming in. Morales from your league, Michael Morales of Thousand Oaks right there.
That was the thing for us, was we didn't know how good Morales was. So when they ran their league meet, And we were looking, we're like, well, either this kid's really, really good, or they didn't run as fast as they thought. And there was Christian Simone for us, and unfortunately we didn't have him at State or NXN, but he was running really, really well. And he came from a program where it's a little bit lower mileage and hadn't really developed much yet, and ended up running really well for us.
We saw, just finishing up there, also John Worthy. I kind of view him as kind of like one of those hard hat lunch pail kids. He just comes to work every day, and you've seen his progress individually, fitness-wise, confidence, bigger race-wise. He just keeps checking all the boxes and developing in every area, it seems.
Yeah, he's one of those kids that runs really, really well at NXN. For whatever reason, some kids are just good at that course and some kids aren't. The biggest problem you run into is when your number one or your number two guys aren't good at that course. You know what I mean? So if I could run 15 guys at NXN every year, I think we would be amazing. Because we'd have some guys that are 7, 8, 9, 10 for us that would do really well. Like I said, Leandro Candre was our number 8 guy going into the end of the season, and he ran, top 65 or whatever. So you can see in the video here, this is where Mateo Joseph finished after falling. So he closed the gap the best that he could. But
the aftermath now, meet just ended. Results are being pushed out. Took a little bit of challenge. We came out. You mentioned you're back in Oregon. You see your phone. What was your first reaction? You said?
I was watching it on my phone, and I thought to myself, okay, we just got destroyed. That was the feeling, was we got destroyed.
But even before that, you kind of mentioned, oh, these can't be right. You thought there was a malfunction.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure out if a couple of our kids maybe got missed, or maybe some of the chips didn't get right. I figured we'd have.
Yeah, that happens there. They miss people sometimes, but then they fix it pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I was concerned about that. I mean, I figured they would go 1-2, so that wasn't a surprise for me. The question mark for me is how good are these younger guys that they've got, and usually we'll surge pretty well at the end of races. I think we've been pretty consistent in that. And we just didn't do that in this race. So, if you look at where we're at, for the most part, other than Christian Simone and Eric Reza, the rest of our guys were either at where they were at the mile or faded back a little bit. And I think our 24 and 26 on that list there ended up being our guys that were number 1 and number 2 most of the season in Chris Verdugo and Cole Sawyer-Jaeger. So it's just one of those weird races for us that the guys that ran really well for us most of the season did not run well at this race.
On their end, in all honesty, I mean, you knew what their 1 and the 2 could do. As a team, in all honesty, what you saw that night, or what you saw on your phone and you saw afterward in the results, did they in any way exceed what you thought they were going to do that night? Keeping in mind they also set the team time record.
Yeah, no, they ran. I mean, we've run that course a lot. To run a 71 on that course is insane. So, you know what I mean? It's an easy course, but anytime you can run under 73, you're really, really good as a team. You're probably top 10 in the country. So, watching a 71-10, we knew that's skewed a little bit because their top 2 were so fast. But at the end of the day, there was no doubt that the other guys were going to come along and compete. We knew they were going to be every bit the challenge that we expected them to be, if not more.
Okay, so we see the aftermath right here. You mentioned at the start of the season that you knew what you had. A few people knew what you had as far as the high end, but a lot of people out there across the country didn't. After this race, you guys became a household program as far as a household name. People knew, whoa, where'd this team come from? In that immediate aftermath, once the results come in, you see the team time, you see the individual times. What was your first reaction to what your team had just achieved?
It was finally people can see what we have and who we are. I mean, that was Woodbridge. Woodbridge was our marker. It's like, let's show everyone what we have. Then we reset for the state meet. We really didn't care about them. I mean, yeah, we went after Clovis, of course, but it was we kind of wanted to make a point. I mean, we wanted to break the record. I wanted Nico he wanted to break the national record, and we wanted to win the team thing. So it was not necessarily like, okay, we beat Great Oak, but it was our first time. I think it was our first time we ever beat them. And I don't know how many California teams have beaten them on that course, probably in how many years, I don't know. But yeah, I was excited for the guys. As a coach, it was easy because what I said we can do, they did. If it didn't go our way, it might have been a little harder for us, for them to believe it. It's easy to tell a team they're capable of something, but then if they don't do it, what are the excuses, or why we didn't do it,
As well as the kids ran and as fast as the team time was there any kid
in that race for you that performed better than you thought they were going to? Did anyone impress you a bit more than the others?
The one kid I was really happy with was my seventh man, Tommy. Tommy McDonald. He went 14:44. I said he was a 16-something guy the year before. His mile PR is 4:50 in the mile. He just put good work in over the summer. He grew a lot. Like, that's the high school thing. He grew. He's totally more mature. But that was pretty cool for him, because I told him going in, you need to be you can be at 9:50 at that 2 mile. That's where you need to be at. Like, think about that. And I think he pretty much ran it even, but I was hoping he could run 14:50. I was hoping, but it's such a big mental jump to go from 16 something to that he was able to do that. He just skipped the 15s. We were pretty happy about that. So that was a pretty everyone else ran like I thought, but it's hard to get 7 guys to run well and major competition, and the best team in the country there, and it's hard.
So the official results are out. The tweets go out. The stories get posted. The texts get sent out all over in our little cross-country world here and there. You guys kicked the sleeping dog. You guys punched Goliath in the mouth. You guys woke up a dynasty. What was your initial thought about handing it to them on a meet that they've owned?
No, I mean, it was cool. Like, we were excited, of course, but the funny part is I was waiting to go over to Doug to see his reaction, and he wasn't there. And I saw his assistant, Dan. I was like, oh, man, I was like, where's Doug? I think he said Portland or something. And I was like, not that it was like, I was like, oh, man, the one time we finally do this. But I don't think it was within 40 minutes you text me. He sent me a text before I got on the bus saying, congratulations, it's going to be a good year, battle or something like that. And he was right. At the end of the day, I knew they were going to come back and want to beat us even more. I mean, that's just reality. I was actually sitting there cheering for my guys coming around, like with 400 to go, that big square they run around, and I was standing right by his team. And I remember the look on his parents' faces. I could be wrong, but it looked like they were a little surprised. And I was like screaming for Newbury Park. I'm like, I got to get out of here, because I realized I was standing right where all the Great Oak people were. And then I ran over, and I heard some older lady go, this kid just ran 13:30 or something. And I'm like, what? I had no idea what Nico, because I didn't even know the times. So I had no idea. And then I ran to the finish and I knew we won. I could tell because I saw where his guys were. I wasn't thinking, I knew there was going to be no other team that would challenge us there but Great Oak. It was cool. I think it was like we talked about all summer. It was the target we wanted. I said, listen, you need that target on your back. You got to be able to run under pressure. It worked out perfect, because if we were always always sleeping and then we just got it at the end of the season, sometimes I think it's harder. In order to perform at NXN, I wanted to go into NXN ranked #1, because I want them to win when people are expecting it. And if you could win like that, I think it's harder. I do. So I just was really, I was glad, because I was like, this season is, granted we all stay healthy is always the biggest #1 goal, but I was really happy with it.
Okay, so the race is over, results are official, the tweets go out, the stories get posted, the texts go around in our old cross-country world, the word is out. Afterward, looking over, I see the Great Oak kids, and it was always tough to watch when kids don't go as they want it to go. They were a bit despondent, a bit shell-shocked. I'm sure in their mind they're thinking, oh God, what's Coach gonna be like on Monday, when we see him? So take us to what happened on Monday.
I really didn't talk with them too terribly much, a little bit here and there in some text messages. I just told them not to worry about it. But when I got back to practice, in the afternoon practice, I looked at them and I said, guys, do I look worried? And after that, they were fine. They went back to normal. But they definitely, shell-shocked is the best way to put it. They were surprised that somebody could beat our team like that, because we knew how good we were. And so I had to break down for them, kind of where we were at in our training schedule. And I had to break down for them, this is what the numbers look like when you guys run like you're capable of. And they're really not that far in front of us. I think by the time we get to Clovis, it'll be pretty much neck and neck. So we just had to kind of keep them stay in the course and not overly worried. And that was really before we knew that Mateo Joseph had fallen. And so.
As far as a coach for high school, you've got to be, there's the master, the art and the science of coaching. You guys are both masters of the art of coaching. When you guys lost, when the team lost at Woodbridge, How much in any way did that help you as far as giving you that leverage to get them focused or refocused?
Yeah, I mean, it helped us a ton because our guys now knew what the target was, right? Once you know who you've got to beat, then it makes things pretty easy. And they ran so well that it was obvious that they were the top team in the country at that point. And so I think it was, let's go take care of Loudon Valley, and then let's come back and show them, what we can do at Woodward Park. So, it definitely, I think it took some of the pressure off of us because we knew we were really good and we knew we were going to be, the number one team in the country. But when somebody beats the number one team in the country by 33 points, that's a pretty freaking good team. So we knew we were going to have our hands full from that point on. And I think it dialed the kids in for sure.
So the night of Woodbridge, after I get home and I start looking at the results, as I'm driving, I'm thinking, gosh, how did Newbury Park win by that much? Then I get home and I start looking at various things and I was aware about Mateo falling and started saying, okay, this should have been here. This should have been here. I came away from that thinking, Jesus Christ, they're still on the same page. They're still This was a bit of an aberration as far as the scoring thing.
In our next Masterclass episode, Coach Sean and Coach Doug will discuss the 2019 Clovis Invitational, including commentary as the boys championship race progresses through Woodward Park's famous 5,000-meter course. Great Oaks boys have won the championship race every year since 2014. Can they bounce back from their resounding defeat at Woodbridge? Will Newbury Park's boys notch another big win toward an undefeated season? And can Nico Young challenge Herman Fernandez's amazing 14:24 course record? Join us for the next Masterclass.